We'll just have to go off my phone, and if everyone will do the best we can.
That's what I'm doing too.
Welcome to the October Local Planning Committee meeting. We're thrilled everyone's here. I think we should Bernadette, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bernadette. Happy birthday to you. Woohoo!
Are we online?
Drinks for everybody.
No internet.
Lavender daiquiris for
No
everybody.
internet. Some baked goods. Thank you to Garrett for bringing the
Yeah, I
baked
know,
goods.
Garrett made cookies, and he's christened that way, he just had a.
You know. With that, we should start. So the first point of agenda is to review the meeting minutes from September 9th, review and approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
Looks good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Lovely. I think we can vote by that because there's no one, the committee members are all here in person. They're not joining us virtually, so we can do that. So that passes. Lovely. The second agenda item is fairly broad, and that's somewhat intentional to include a lot of things. The simplest one is that our next meeting, I'm going to keep saying it repeatedly because it's different than we thought it was, so make sure it gets to your calendar correctly. It will be on Monday, November 4th, so that's the night before the national election, Monday, November 4th, from 5 to 7 p.m. We'll probably be in the small room, but just FYI. And then in December, we go back to our usual December 3rd. So we got that down. I'm going to be a little clunky here since we're doing this on the phone, but that's what we got. We innovate.
Actually, I have it on my.
So just so we know for that. And then lovely Christine, we're so grateful for you, our town planner, reminding us what the date is for review of the housing production plan community.
22nd at the planning board meeting. We are doing a public hearing, and it's going to be in the Urban Room and at 6:30.
Okay.
It's gonna be here, right?
Correct.
Sorry, which day?
Tuesday,
22nd.
October 22nd at 6:30 p.m.
6:30 p.m.
Review.
This is the housing plan?
The public hearing for the
Yeah,
housing.
okay.
Anyone and all are encouraged to attend for that. I will be in Worcester. I will not be able to be here, but it would be great if anybody who's able to be here who can be. So thank you for clarifying for that. Idling along to the agenda. Any updates about the open space and recreation plan, or any other dates, please tell us that we should be aware of for timing. And please, if you guys get closer if you'd like, I mean, join us at the table.
You want to sit at the table or? Sure.
I think you should, yeah.
Last week, we met with the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee. We evaluated the draft goals and objectives. So I think overall, the committee was fairly pleased with the direction of the draft goals and objectives that were listed. I apologize, I can share that with you all tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, we'd love it. It's all
Just
good.
so that you can take a look. I'm doing some final edits that the committee had recommended, and then I think we'll do one more version, and hopefully we can finalize that. I did just receive a draft of the Open Space and Recreation Plan as a whole, so I will be sharing that with the committee. And so there are a few, 2 or 3 sections that still need to be updated and refined, and so we're plugging along with that document. And so Margot was also at the meeting, so Margot, if I missed anything, feel free to.
No, I think you've covered it. The committee is mainly town department heads, and Mike Locke and I are also on it. Obviously Mike representing the Conservation Trust, and I'm sort of being a liaison between this committee and that committee.
Thank you. We feel well represented. And just to reiterate, I kind of had a connection. I mean, you were sharing with us last month, Christine, just the time to, the time to presentation for the, at town meeting and such. And we were talking about sort of having all of this as final as possible by the end of the calendar year.
Yes.
And sort of a nuance came to me, and you can direct me. The end of December is a slog. Is there, when we say the end of the calendar year, I mean, do we really mean January 1st? Could we mean January 15th in terms of just like the functional, or, I mean, I was just trying, like.
Will be January 15th, but
Okay.
I'm still going to push by the
Yeah.
end of the calendar year.
Yeah,
Just because there are a lot of moving parts.
Of course.
And I know for the housing production plan and the open space and recreation plan, we want to maintain the target of submitting both of those documents in 2024.
okay.
And I think that's the goal of
Okay.
Time Bond as well.
No,
So-
that makes sense. I was just trying to like set us up for success in terms of like being realistic about the holidays and stuff, and I was looking at the calendar, but that makes sense. We'll be able to nail the housing and the rec by January 1st and then have a little bit of tidy time, but, okay.
So what happens after the, January 15th again?
Somebody fix something.
Well,
We can't stop reading.
Get your Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month back.
we'll be guiding. Oh, we're back. Your internet? Oh, that's exciting.
I just fixed.
Oh.
But seriously, are there more things to do?
Yes, there'll be more to come. Patience, young grasshopper, but yes, go
The other
ahead.
reason, because this is going to be presented at annual town meeting, warrant articles are due.
We
And there's
understand.
a whole process
Yes.
to go before the planning board and the select board to then have those articles endorsed by both of those boards and then sent on for annual town
Right.
meeting. So
There'll be
I'm not-
plenty of work.
I'm not 100% clear on the dates, but
Yeah.
my understanding is that that should be ready to go by January. So-
Yeah. I just wanted everyone to hear it, and I get it, and we're doing it, and, no one's disagreeing. I just, as a mom, I was like looking at the calendar, really like a shocking number of days out from Christmas, like a little depressing when you actually looked at it. And I was like, oh, let's set ourselves up for success here. So, got it. Sounds like we're all on the same page about that. Cool. That was a very small logistical thing. We have some bigger logistical things that we'll get to. Christine, are there any other dates coming up, like in the next 90 days, that we should be aware of?
If we're, whatever the process is to share the document with other town boards and committees, if you can copy me, and I did upload the draft LCP up on the website, as
Awesome.
well as the draft housing production plan. I will do the open space and rec tomorrow at
Okay.
some point, just so that everyone at least has access to it, and when you communicate to other town boards and committees, you can let them know that they can access this on the LPC webpage.
Is there gonna be any kind of a public meeting on the open space plan?
It just was.
In terms of completion,
No, I'm just saying is that the housing production planning is having the housing production, what about the open space? Is that just,
I think the
Not
planning
before-
board, I'm not sure about the planning board, but I can talk with the planning board members. I do know that we do intend to go to the Conservation Commission, because it's usually the Conservation Commissions that submit or ask for endorsement of the open space and recreation plan that then gets submitted to the Division of Conservation and Recreation up in Boston, so. But I can get a confirmation as to that schedule and just make sure.
I'm not doing that in November, right? Open space plan?
No, you're
Okay.
doing the comprehensive.
Just our stuff, okay.
Which is a lovely time to give if we want to go around the room and just give anecdotal, no one's holding you to it, but just generally, so we got our bases covered. You're going to conservation.
November 20th, I'm going to Concom,
Amazing.
and I'm also gonna try to get on historic for November also.
Spectacular. Go Barbara. Thank you. You don't have to have any.
Yeah, I don't.
That's okay. we include everybody. Tell us about the spiritual end.
Informally, I'm gonna work with the spiritual, with the,
Father Brian.
Yeah,
The clergy.
clergy, there you go.
Sorry. I couldn't find the right word for it. But I'm just curious, are we gonna have a point where we're gonna share town-wide? Are we gonna have any open forums
Yeah.
that we'll do for the town to react to a PowerPoint presentation of the highlights of the plan?
It's highly recommended, I mean, at least in a public meeting, and there is also for Cape Cod Commission certification, there's a public hearing requirement
Okay.
of the final draft plan, so that's late in the process.
What time frame?
Can we do it January, is that what we're saying?
Well, it would probably
We're talking
be
about February.
a little bit later, there may be still some tweaking going on of the plan, and, you know, you can submit the language for the warrant, and there may still be some
Okay,
tweaking going on, so it's really like when the document is, you're satisfied with it, that it's ready for a public hearing, and that can be with the planning board, or it could be sponsored by you, or jointly, it's really, there are a lot of options there, but that is a requirement.
Two different levels, though. One would be the very detailed, Word document plan, and the other would be kind of a higher-level PowerPoint that probably isn't going to change that dramatically with tweaking that might get done to the detail.
Correct, and that's probably more appropriate for, you know, a public meeting,
Right.
and you should, you know,
That's what
perhaps
I'm
talk
looking
about
for.
how you wanna roll that out, or engage the public as much as you can,
I'm going to
in
put
what's coming out of the plan.
Mary on
Yarmouth
the-
had one last week, right?
Sorry?
Yarmouth had a public meeting on the comprehensive
Oh, I
plan.
wasn't aware of that.
Last
Did they?
week.
Did they? Okay.
Because I'll put Mary on the spot, but was it Truro that you had identified the PowerPoint? I mean, a wonderful presentation.
It was the website that did highlights of their plan.
Yeah.
And it was a synopsis, very easily understood. So I looked to that as an example to really get that information out.
and just, it sounds like the timing, that will be like warrant-ish, town meeting-ish. That is the sort of the timing.
March-ish.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing all of that up is because I'm trying to delay the clergy until we have more recommendation material, rather than to rehash findings. I don't think we just need to tease the community to add more findings.
Once you have a draft action plan and, you know, strategies and actions, then that's a good time to, you know,
Okay.
engage the public in, you know, like, well, what does this plan mean to me? What, you know, how am I gonna be affected by it? So,
And my last question before my 5 minutes are up.
Right, throw the wrapper
Who's
at you, no,
building
I'm
that
kidding.
PowerPoint? Who builds that PowerPoint presentation? Is that your
Um,
team,
well,
Sharon, or is it?
sometimes it's the committee, it can be a mix, I mean, we can assist with that, you know, so it's, again, it's sort of, we're not
Okay.
prepared yet to do that, but
There's
we
some-
can
there's some
talk about
background
how you
discussion.
wanna do that, and if there are other
No, it's okay.
supporting, like a
Open
flyer
meeting.
or something along those lines.
I've never done that before.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
you're all over the clergy. Thank you for your leadership with that. We appreciate
And
your,
that was all you asked?
yes, great, it's great. David?
I do not have anything to report today,
Okay, but you're on your little areas of spheres.
of course.
Of course you are. Garrett, thank you for the baked goods.
No problem.
Ed?
What? Any
Huh?
meetings?
Who? Any meetings? It's not if you don't. It's okay if you don't. It's not a,
Yeah.
I'm
not
just,
really.
okay. That's fine. We're gonna double back to your spheres in just a moment as we talk about housing. But Margot's all over the open space and rec, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, who do you meet with? I mean, there is a recreation commission, and Barbara's already meeting with the conservation commission, which I think are the two sort of key commissions.
Do you
But-
think the
but
Recreation Commission feels included?
I don't know. I don't have a sense of that. I mean, their director is on the,
Oh,
you know,
well, there you go.
steering committee.
So that's good.
so,
If they come to the meeting, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Library board meets tomorrow night, so I was gonna mention it to them.
Thank you.
You know, in general, of course, if they want to look at the draft and whole,
Yeah.
have feedback at some point, but particularly in culture, because it kind of falls into that area. And then a week from Thursday, the 10th is, it's on my agenda for the Cultural Council. I'll be sending out, I'll send out the whole link, but I'm going to send out the cultural part
Mm.
ahead of time.
Mm.
And I have it on the agenda to have a discussion and gather any feedback from the
That's awesome.
council.
Thank you. Mary, you good?
I'm good.
You're good. Yes.
Quick question.
Yes.
I just got it. Is, the community center is really getting overcrowded and is going to get really overcrowded as the number of older adults increase. Is that considered in recreation in any way, or is that just a whole different?
No, it
World.
is. It's definitely, it's part of their job to plan programs for different
Everyone.
age groups, yeah, yeah. So, yes.
No
And-
more issues unless you have a recommendation.
Onwards.
But we had a discussion last week, the meeting that Christine was referencing. One of the things that you guys asked for was a better description for the open space plan of the existing programs that they're running. So that should be in the plan.
And they're already running programs at the 204 as well. That's already become, a part of the
It's
gym.
awesome.
the
It's actually
gym and
really
the cafeteria.
awesome, awesome to see. It's really cool to
The
see.
camp was over there for a while.
Amazing. That gym is back online and like,
It's beautiful.
it's,
The ball fields are all being used, so
Yep.
there's a lot of overlap between
Yep.
the community center as
a
well.
lot of
Yeah.
good stuff happening there, despite, despite,
And then
yes,
the
it's
community
amazing.
garden
That was
is
it.
another
They
aspect
knew
that's
already that there was a
really
lack of space in the
It's a
community center,
really,
and
we should go
there
on
it
the
was.
record as saying that it's like tremendously positive.
Yeah, it's a
And
really good thing.
a lot of the youth's like sports programming is really undergoing a renaissance, and it's lovely to see. And there's some really great people in place, so it's awesome. Really positive stuff.
Have you chained that new guy so that he's not allowed to
I
ever
will
leave?
go on the record in the transcript. Everyone be nice to Coach John in the Department of Recreation. Amazing. He's really a gem. It's a gem. And we're grateful. I tell him all the time. I think he thinks I'm a little weird, but because he does such a good job.
Walking out
Oh, no, ma'am. He ma'ams me. But yes, 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 Marco.
I did
Yes.
get an inquiry from from Ray Gotwell, representing the citizens group. that
Yes.
Has had an interest in the growth issues.
And we're going to have a transition to that. But yes, tell us that. It's a natural transition to my
His
next point.
question was,
Yep.
how, what's going on with the plan?
Yep.
And will there be specific recommendations regarding zoning changes to address growth management? So, that, I just wanted to, what they're hoping to see in it. And so,
So it's a potential action point, right? Beyond the goals. Potential recommendation. With that, Christine very kindly brought to, and I thought it was good to bring here in this agenda item, there was some inquiry about potential openings or cross-serving on the planning board and, right, zoning?
The Zoning Board of Appeals
Yes.
and the Planning Board
Please tell us officially how you,
are looking for volunteers if anyone is interested in serving on either of those boards. There are vacancies, so it would be great to have some members of the community attend or to get appointed to the board. But particularly where you've been involved in this process, and it touches a lot of many of the responsibilities between the planning board and the ZBA, not only for the planning component, but also the regulatory aspects of both of those boards. So if it's something you're interested in, please feel free to contact staff, myself, or Rachel Lohr, who's the zoning compliance officer, and we would welcome any input or feedback.
what, some people may know this at the back of their hand. I do not. When do they meet? What would the time commitment be? And is there we're presumably gonna disband after this gets approved. Actually, that's not necessarily true, but like not be meeting as regularly.
Well, I assume you guys were on the implementation committee.
It's a
so-
lifetime commitment.
Sure, that's fair. As long as there's cookies. Anyway, so just so folks would know, and like, would there be any conflict as we finish this term, is what I'm saying, just for everyone to know.
In terms of conflict, I'm not, I think there are some financial aspects that you'd have to disclose or let the town know of if you own property.
Got it.
That you will need to be aware of. But the zoning board of appeals meets once a month, and the planning board meets twice a month. And so I think for the case, I can't speak for the zoning board of appeals, but for the caseload for the planning board, it's been the last 2 to 3 years, probably 30 to 40 cases each year. So it's fairly active. This year it's been a bit slower, but that's been the average the last several years. And then there have been some initiatives, I think in 2023, that they had done some zoning amendments for the town, including the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, the solar array bylaw, and the floodplain management bylaw. So the planning board does hold responsibilities both for the subdivision control law as well as is the special permit granting authority for site plan review, as well as additions for new construction, for commercial development and industrial development as well.
And both of those committees, it's a good response to Ray as well, but it's for everyone to have heard here.
So if anyone has any, I know I said if anyone's interested, please let me know, but if you have any additional questions, also feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to provide any information that we have.
It's important. Thank you. That's really great. That was that. And then I wanted to use this, since we're talking about community updates, before we get to governance and before we get to the big draft. I think it's very timely as this living, breathing document to use in this agenda item B to sort of recap a little bit about where we're at with housing in town, and a very active sort of public discussion, particularly because we're taking the housing production plan to the planning board the end of this month. Anybody who wants to, I did not attend the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, but anybody who did want to give us a summary, and I think it is so timely that it's worth talking about a little bit here.
It was long.
Bernadette, thank
The
you.
other room was opened up.
Okay.
And there were a lot of people online. A lot of people spoke. I thought it was funny, we were talking about, changing zoning, and the question that was asked about changing the zoning, and other people was speaking the other night about, why do we have zoning if you're going to change it on us, I don't know.
No, and this is good to talk about, like, because we're finger on the pulse of the community.
My feeling, Christine, was almost half and half in the room. It wasn't super acrimonious or anything.
That's good.
But there is obviously people who already reside in the village of North Harwich have concerns about traffic mitigation, and not enough space to widen roads, and the project's really big. And the folks from Mid-Cape Church Homes, which I don't understand why it's called that, because they are not a church group. They are a nonprofit, which some of the people who got up to speak didn't realize, and we're talking about them making all these profits. There were people who they maybe had never come in here for a meeting before, because this is when it literally hit home for them. But I feel like at the end it went well overall. Both sides had expressed their feelings, and a couple of people got up and spoke about the fact that it's a balancing act, that there probably need to be compromise and working together going forward. I think some people expressed an interest in, just one phase and see how it goes, rather than trying to permit the entire thing all at once, but
Mhm.
it's just still early days.
I was impressed of the timeliness of the discussion and the inherent tension, which we're on to some, we know this, but like the tension of conservation, land use, housing, which this was what's motivating our work here. This is the issue of the day, so we're right on time.
They do, in their initial plans, I believe they have, they keep saying a lot about preserving a lot of the space and having a big buffer, that's not gonna be these 3-floor places right on the street or anything. It came up again, though, that density isn't a dirty word, that if you wanna keep some land and you wanna have enough housing,
Yeah.
you may have to structure things differently than the traditional 1-acre, single-family homes that we have. And I wasn't quite clear, I don't know, maybe Ed or Christine understands better. The main reason was there was supposed to be a letter going to the state. The state gets to decide if it's a 40B or not. And then among the select board, they were mentioning that there were pieces of the plan from Pine Oaks that they didn't have that night in front of them.
Ed is going to have informed thoughts. We're so lucky to have such amazing depth of experience on this committee.
So the project is, the applicant has filed with the
Mhm,
state
mhm.
for a comprehensive permit application,
Mhm.
or a notice to the state
Mhm,
that they will be filing
Mhm.
the comprehensive permit with the town.
mhm.
So they notify the state evaluates the application as well as their financials, and once, that has been notified, the state then notifies the town, and the town has 30 days to take a look at what was submitted to the state and to reply and raise questions or issues of concern. It's not about whether we support the project or we don't support the
Mhm.
project. It's really what potential
What are the
impacts
the hot topics are? Yeah.
And so once the 30-day, 30 days is up, the town has to, the select board has to submit a letter back to the state. There should be a site visit with the state officials, which hasn't been determined yet. So, and then there was also information that, I think from last night's meeting, that not the entire application had not been submitted to the town from the state. So the town had recommended to file for an extension.
So they could see the
regarding
entire
letter.
application.
So once the letter goes to the state, they come down, they do a site visit, and then they will issue what's called a project of eligibility letter to the applicant. Once the applicant receives that letter, it's basically a green light for the applicant to then file the permit with the local zoning board of appeals, and that starts the comprehensive permit process.
Yeah, and one of the,
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
No, I'm so grateful for your professional expertise and that lovely,
Yeah.
fact-based explanation. Thank you. Yes, Ed.
the issue that's came up is what the state requires in the applicant's submittal
Correct.
Yeah.
is not very specific. And the applicant has been, in front of different groups, the selectmen, and they've done, they've admitted they've done a traffic study. Well, that wasn't really part of the submittal. And the pieces that were left out, one of the pieces that's left out is the whole area of financial arrangements that they're going through, a lot of which is still proprietary because they're still in negotiations on a lot of it. So it's questionable actually whether the state would send that back and it would be publicly available. It might be, they may send it back under confidence to be reviewed by the selectmen in executive session. And I forget what, there's two sections, I can't remember what, off the top of my head, what the section the next one would cover.
I believe it's, the applicant has to demonstrate that they're a nonprofit, that they have, they have a state subsidizing agency for the project, and that they have site control over the project. Those are the three requirements. That's my understanding. And part of the project eligibility aspect that the select board have been asked to evaluate are basically, is the site appropriate for residential development, and to touch on issues of building mass, topography, environmental impacts. I'm forgetting it.
Okay, something to that, just, could,
But the premise is you have to stick to that criteria.
sure, I understand, you can't just say, I don't like it
The
for,
select board can provide comment, but
Yeah.
they,
You can provide comment in the town
but they're just,
administrator.
it's just comment.
Right.
Correct.
And
They
so-
will do that in the form of a letter to the state.
So, you know, a lot of the neighbors obviously raised issues about transportation, you know, and also about, you know, building in what is now woodland.
Yeah.
You know, doing away with our woodland because.
How about septic issues? Do they have a way of
That's
figuring
one
that out?
thing that didn't come up last night at all.
No, that really,
Really?
well, it
They-
did and it
Not
didn't, you
really.
know,
I mean-
it's in the Herring River watershed,
Yeah.
but, you know.
I don't think it's in a zone of contribution
Yeah.
for public
It's
water
not-
supply,
it's not-
but it
it's not in
definitely
the
is in
zone
the
two.
Herring River watershed.
So are
But,
they proposing package plants or anything, or are they just gonna go with
Uh,
septic?
well.
I think they would, at the scale that they're proposing to build, they'd have to do some kind of a treatment facility.
But then again, they're also talking a 10 to 15-year development period, and there may be, by the time they get out to the higher density that they need the package plant, there may be sewer lines available.
Good luck on that.
And if they get out to that, I mean, it's in.
which actually is my next question, and we won't go on and on, but this is like a great summary of this as it relates to our work, which is why we're here for the local planning, you know, the comprehensive plan. The sequentialness of it, could anyone comment in the sense of related to, we're not supposed to call it the Marceline, but the Marceline property, what are we calling it? The
247 Queen Anne or whatever, someone did say something about the
Just
fact
to understand that, I mean, they are not, I understand they are technically unrelated, but they are thematically related, and how that might inform a project.
that brought up for some people, like, the fact that all of a sudden, you know, if this was happening in East Harwich, it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't fly, and all of a sudden, North Harwich has two within a half mile of each other. But they don't have anything yet. And I think it's gonna change and go through a lot of permutations before
The issue-
anything ever happens.
The issue with the Marceline.
It needs a better name, but if we're not supposed to call it that, I don't mind calling it that,
You
but.
know, you have this going on at one end of.
Yes, no, I appreciate it.
That going on just past the stoplights at the other way on Queen Anne. But, oh, shit.
I mean, they're separate, same motivation, separate actors, and, but in a geographically one area, they,
Plus
yes.
there's also the project in Dennis, right off of Depot Street.
Yeah.
That,
Yes, yes, thank you for,
conversion of
Eagle
the.
Nest.
yes, Eagle Pond, yes,
nursing home
yes.
to-
Yeah,
To housing.
different use, but yes, yeah.
I mean, you know, this is a fascinating dilemma in a way, because Harwich actually has an opportunity here to really make an impact on the availability of affordable housing. You know, I mean, in a meaningful way, not just sort of chipping away at the edges.
10 units at a
But with-
time, right,
with
yes.
These two
Yeah,
projects, the other
right.
one's in Dennis,
Right,
but it's close by.
yep,
But at the same time, the traffic concerns are are real.
Yeah.
They're real.
Agreed.
Everything has to go through that Queen Anne 124 intersection. And
Which is
there's very little room there to try to widen that intersection, to put in turning lanes or, you know, that kind of thing. So somebody needs to really take that seriously and try to figure out a solution that's going to make it not a nightmare.
And
You know.
the other point with that was that, you know, the Hall made very much a point about how much of a traffic nightmare it is now. But somehow they didn't seem to, you know, they said, if this goes in, it'll get worse, and then that will be the thing that forces the town to have to invest a lot of money in fixing the traffic problems. Well, if anybody noticed, you should be fixing the
We're all
traffic
about
problems.
planning here.
That was-
It's a disaster.
That did occur to me,
Yeah.
that, you
You
know,
know,
that's
it's
not
sort of
the
like-
strongest argument you have, because
Yeah.
the traffic isn't probably going to get better. It's already a problem you're still going to have to address.
Yeah, depending on the time of the day there and the dump and, oh my Lord, yeah. Yes, Ed.
And
They'll be talking, it's on the agenda.
Okay, I just, you know, yeah, wanted us to understand the timeliness. We get the geography, but the temporal relationship.
And another thing that may or may not be of interest if people are looking for more easy reading. Last night's agenda and packet included a letter from every department head in town. Joe Powers had asked them all at their last department meeting. He needed a synopsis from every one of them of what impact that could possibly have on their department. So you can read some of those comments in the packet if you had any interest in hearing how Rec and
Yeah.
they thought about it, how, COA thought about it.
And I guess two other points. One, from personal history, you know, I when I was early in town in, I don't know, 2002, 2003, 2004, I spent the winter running plow truck for one of the landscaping companies, and my route was Main Street, Queen Anne, out to Eagle Pond. And even on the nights when it was a blizzard, the traffic mess out of Eagle Pond, 10 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, was incredible. I couldn't believe how much traffic was coming out with
All the nurses and the medical assistants and, yeah,
staff changing,
Yeah.
you know.
My
and I
understanding
can't-
about that, though, is that's going to change dramatically, because the people there are not going to have transportation.
Yeah.
They're going to be
There.
a van
Yeah,
coming in and
yeah.
out. And
So-
someone else
Yeah.
made a point that,
Is that, and that-
some of the traffic we have is from people who can no longer afford to live here, who used to live here or grew up here. Now they have to be somewhere else, and to work in town, they're driving back in, and maybe if we had homes, there would be less
Yeah.
traffic in that respect, and they're coming and going at different times. It's not like everybody's coming out.
So
anymore.
so a
But
good,
it's,
a good
Yeah.
a professionally done traffic
Traffic
study should
Yeah.
take all of that kind
Sure.
of thing
Yeah, it will.
into account.
But they've had them done, and here's where McCaskill is right, where he doesn't believe the results, which, if you look at what they've
Yeah.
done, they're questionable, in my opinion. I mean,
All right.
they.
I think
need to
we've got the state of the state of Harwich, so to speak.
Monday's meeting, or tune in, or.
And just a brief news item.
Yes.
Tonight, the town of Dennis is having a special town meeting, and on their agenda is to approve their $145 million bond issue, which amongst other things will provide for building a sewage treatment plant that is a potential for a plant that the town of Harwich could share.
Wow, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
And that would be located near the Dennis landfill area.
Interesting.
Dennis,
Yes, Christine.
Like, the planning
Oh,
board's
you're right,
also
that is.
responsible for any zoning changes. Those zoning changes will have to go through the planning board. The planning board's public hearing process in order as a recommendation to then get to town meeting, so.
Of course,
Join the process is what Christine is saying, and these committees need members.
doesn't a 40B trump the
Oy,
zoning
oy.
requirements?
Yes, the comprehensive permit,
Yeah.
if the town hasn't met the statutory minimum of 10% of the town's year-round housing stock, which Harwich is at 4.98 with a total of 328 housing units.
It's like you know that number.
What's that?
Counts it every day. She counts it every day.
If you add these two projects, you're gonna be an awful lot closer to 10%.
Yeah.
We will be very, a
We'll
lot
be there.
closer, correct. Because I think we need about 660 to hit the 10%. And the comprehensive permit law is really a tool to incentivize private development as well as nonprofits or the municipalities to supersede local zoning regulations in order to do a development, so they don't have to meet certain setbacks or height requirements. They can do achieve a higher density if needed. However, you still need to meet any building code requirements. You also need to meet any Title V for DEP standards in addition to the Wetlands Protection Act. So,
But the only word in there that really makes a difference is density.
correct. Well, I'm sorry,
And,
but it's a great tool. I don't want to I don't want it to be negative. The comprehensive.
Well, we understand. This is all nuanced.
Creating
But what-
opportunities.
one of the unique things is you build the 300 unit to make your 10% goal. Your 10% goal increases by 30 units.
Yeah, but here, that's one of the things that's sort of interesting about these two projects, is that because they're both being done, one by the, the town's housing trust and the other by a nonprofit organization, the, 40B only requires it to be like, what, 20% affordable? So, you
25%,
can,
yeah.
yeah, so
Big enough project, though, you can,
with these, there's a potential to have all of the units, potentially be in some range of, attainable to affordable. And, I mean, you can't get that in a for-profit project.
No, anecdotally, I was sitting at
It's rental.
Yeah, yeah.
Sitting at Cape Cod Hospital this morning, just and our eyes are open to it, but 2 longtime employees around the OR are talking about their housing grind. We know data-wise, but we know experientially too. I mean, this really, really matters. So.
Bernadette and
It's
I
complicated.
talked about the project from the town's housing need.
Actually, that wasn't me. I only got up to speak. I was reading directly from a post that my daughter posted on Old Timers. I texted her quick, even though she'd put it on Old Timers, but I thought they needed to hear the voice of a different demographic than who most of us in the room were, maybe other than the people from North Harwich, and even though most of them were of a certain age. And Kate had written, and I would say this objectively, a very eloquent response to an ongoing thread there about it, and mentioning seniors as well, because she works for the COA. And so I texted her quick to ask her. I said, I wasn't really planning to speak, but would you be all right with me saying this, even though you'd already put it out there in public? So that was from her. And then the other young woman who was given permission to speak was Ellison Poe, who was at our community engagement thing, and she was the young woman
I
for
remember.
Lower Cape
Community
Community Development
Partnership.
Corporation.
Wasn't she the one
Partnership.
bedroom?
The one who talked about, how not everybody needs or wants, a place that's 3 bedrooms. So it was helpful to hear the younger voices that way. So that was Kate. And then she's texting me because apparently she was watching it from home.
It's the issue of the
And she texted me
day.
again and she said, it's like watching Parks and Rec. I said, yeah, it kind of is.
Onwards.
She said she was going to be sending that in a letter
That's
to
an
the
excellent
selectmen
transition to our governance discussion. Yes.
here in Pawnee.
I recognize the average age of the room, which was slightly around my age. And I said,
I was younger yesterday.
having places for medical professionals to live is important. I mean, and I pointed out that, our family's experience at Lower Cape Health, or Outer Cape Health is, we've gone through innumerable providers because they keep on moving because they just can't afford to live here.
It's all complicated.
It's
So,
happening all over
thank
the
you.
country all the time.
Yep.
Yep.
It is.
It is, it's not just
Yep.
here.
I did we'll transition to governance. I don't know if you read, it was with the Wall Street Journal and New York Times. China has like 9 million extra homes. They shot the other way. Did you read that about the apartments? Yeah, and they got to knock them down. And
really bad.
yes, all right, onwards. To the government, 9 million extra homes,
But you have more than one
apartments.
kid, so-
Right. Anyway, let's talk about governance. David, we're gonna kind of leading the charge, the intellectual thought about including potentially a governance section in our comprehensive plan.
We pulled in Mary a little bit too.
Amazing, good team.
I've been educated. I understand now that governance is not about whether the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator are running this town okay or not. What it does have to do with is our plan. And I call it implementation, but I guess from the private sector, governance is an accepted term. So whether we call it governance or implementation, it's making sure that once this, I think you're only up to 60 pages so far, Sharon, but once this 100-plus page document gets out there, who's going to
It's
pay
used.
attention and how's it going to be followed? And what you need is, you need a group to implement it, which is probably a freestanding committee, such as people from here and whoever else the Board of Selectmen appoints. You need to have very targeted action points, which is the next thing that comes from in the plan. And I've got a request that's going to add to everybody's workload in a few minutes, but it's important to have a very defined set of action points. And there's also the part that ties into the capital budget, which is how much you're going to say about money. As one example that we've passed around is sidewalks. We're all saying how much we need sidewalks. Well, are we going to recommend that the plan add $500,000 a year, $200,000 a year for sidewalks? Are we going to get into money, items like that? Are we going to do what I think Truro did and simply either have $1 sign, $2, $3, or $4 signs to just give an idea that something may cost something?
Well, I like
So
that.
government is going to tie together an organization to track the plan, a committee to track the plan. What are its powers going to be? I think they're only going to be advisory, though one of the things we looked at had them have a budget and all these other things that I'm not sure Harwich is going to get into. To me, the biggest point is translating from our very large plan, including a wonderful but overly detailed housing plan, to get the most important points. And what I want to throw out there is, there's a lot of local, we do this once a month, we come in, we talk, then we go back, and Sharon brings us some nice written stuff. I think at this point, we need to do what's sometimes done with little stickies at design charrettes. We need to say what in these 60 pages we really want to focus on. What is most important to us based on our own community knowledge, based on the surveys that we did a year ago, based on the housing and the other community sessions that we've had. I'm just going to give a couple of examples if I can remember them. Ed, I'm joining you.
Yes. Lot of hours.
The high points, what's our biggest points? We're gonna put dollar signs, maybe
Yeah.
less expensive, more expensive.
Well, action plans have to be measurable to be governed, and I think we're still a little bit removed from there. The committee, we thought was very important. In fact, we leveraged ChatGPT for some
Oh, my goodness.
thoughts on framework, and they were all steering us towards this working committee. Personally, I think it would be good to identify some leading practices or leading examples. What communities do this well, and how do they do it? And we also, three of us, believe that this is a pretty important voice that we heard from the community.
Yeah.
When we did our workshops,
Yeah.
people want to see some level of governance going forward. Doesn't need to be perfect, but I think we need to do some due diligence to that topic, however we cover it.
As far as, just to piggyback what you were saying, I too received contact from Ray Gottwall, and with the whole zoning issues, and just really curious about how the committee was addressing it. And again, thank you for putting the plan on the website, because that was the advisement, in order to just really know, just kind of keep up with the information that we're doing. But it changes as far as where we want to go and the purpose of the document. It seems from the community, they want to use this plan as a tool moving forward. So that changes the objective from, we just want to deliver a report. Or now we want to actually deliver a usable report, because that's the call. So with that, we almost have to just have that need to backtrack a little bit from what we have and take ownership and rewrite and personalize what those action plans are going to be. And then, most importantly, communicate, or find a mechanism of communication, an easy mechanism of communication back to the community, so that they know it is being planned. And again, with the tie-in with the budget, that's an annual report anyway. So just to be able to fold it in there. So that's what we were really dealing with and talking. Does that pretty much represent as far as our conversations and moving forward? So I don't know if any of that delays the timelines that anyone was talking about earlier.
Can't delay the timeline. Train's leaving.
No, I said it was a question more of anything else. Just a question as far as.
Yeah, I understand.
Some thoughts that whatever we're trying to do with governance doesn't necessarily need to be perfect from the outset.
Yeah.
We can speak to it, and that might be something that we develop, or this is where we invite other members of the community to join a subset of this group to further develop it as this is going through the process. I personally don't believe it's got to be perfect the night that we stand up before town meeting and present it, but we better have some thoughts wrapped around how we're going to move forward with it. And for the most part, I mean, my expertise is more in the private sector, and David was doing a lot of education and tweaking. My perspective is I was kind of pushing on his, but I think there are some creative things I think that we can do with it, but it still begets, one, action items have to be measurable where they can, and it would be great to see what other towns have done that are considered good practices for governance.
Brian, I just did the new version of ChatGPT.
Oh, you have version what? What version?
It's 01 preview. It like has a model on a model. It's very.
I'm still on the free version.
It's very annoying. But the 3 towns that actually have really good plans and enforcement around those plans: Boulder, Colorado,
Yeah, I saw that.
Arlington County, Virginia, and Portland, Oregon apparently leads the pack.
All places just like Harwich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've got urban growth boundaries. They have, they talk about zoning regulation, community engagement, periodic updates. A lot of it is around like just keeping people informed and measuring things like you were talking about. Sector plans, transit-oriented development. So
We also
All set.
talked about whether it's annual, quarterly, but there needs to be some group that holds like some accountability back to this LCP.
Brian, would your vision be like, we talked about the planning board itself, right? How they implement some of these strategies and around zoning. Like, would this committee then have almost an attachment to all the major committees in the town?
I don't think they would have to sit on all the committees in the town. I mean, I defer back to David and Mary as part of the conversation. But I think they need to be aware, it needs to be tied to capital budget, and they need to be aware of what is targeted to spend, what's burned, and what coverage do we have against the action items we have in our plan, and what hasn't been executed. And it might be very appropriate, by the way, from my private sector experience, when you do a multi-year plan, which is what this is, invariably you can best have tangible plans for your next 12 months. You have a line of sight for what you're going to do in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And what you want to do is periodically review your success against that plan during that first 12 months. Perhaps you might have to reprioritize or readjust, because we used to say feces happens, right? So things adjust your priority, and then you work through your next 12 months. You try to hold as much adherence back to the large objectives, the large rocks, knowing some of those actions are going to change. And when they do change, it's with foresight. It's not with, oh, why'd you hide that?
In this draft, Sharon has a placeholder, section 7, targeted action plan. That's the next thing I present.
Now we're going to go into this, yes, and
And I'm just trying to push up the ante for committee involvement, committee knowledge, to look at each section and say, what are we missing? I don't think you're going to find too much on that thing on the growth management. We've got one on how to tweak zoning to get denser housing where needed, because we need that affordable and attainable housing. But the other side of the coin isn't quite as well represented. It's not the side that I focus on, but it's still one that this community focuses on. So I think we need to, we've got general policy statements. Just bear with me, I got this. Where's the housing one? There's a housing one that talks about the types of changes that we need to get affordable and attainable housing. And then the one place where we have a targeted action plan already is the housing production plan, where our consultant has given us very specific things to do. Some of those I think are right on target. Some of them I think are not fitting, direct fit with Harwich, but it's not for me to say. It may be for the planning board to comment on. But between now and finalizing these action points, we need to make sure that it fits with what we think is the most important. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do that.
could we use that to dovetail to the last part of the agenda, which is to start going through this and to take advantage of Sharon being here? Where should we focus on this? I mean, on our 60-page document. I mean, looking at it, I think.
Go to section.
Is it 4?
Beginning on page.
Because a lot of it we're getting right. A lot of the state of Harwich, I think we're getting right. We still have some revisions to do, but I mean, this is a tremendous Herculean task of both like the descriptive nature of the community plus like the really important data. It's like hats off to thank you for all your work you've done on this.
Section 4, community goals. It begins with water resources, ocean resources, wetland. Some of these are, I think, are sort of generic statements, continue to do something. Okay, do those translate into action points?
So I guess
Some of the policies, they're called policies, which we might otherwise call action items. Some of them are just.
I'm going to zoom back even a little bit more because, I think this was, super helpful to start to see this together. Thank you. Because we've looked at it all in isolation. If I go back to just page 1 of 60, if we can start to understand, and this is what's posted on the website, right?
Right.
Amazing. So there will be an executive summary, which we don't have yet. Fine. The section 1 is the introduction, yada, yada, right? That's the semantics. Section 2, I think our vision statement is strong and consistent with, okay, great. And this is ballpark what the table of contents will look like. That's the format you're imagining. Okay, which is so great to see because it's not what I had in my mind. So that's good. I mean, it's fine. It's great. Just the way of organizing it's good. So the existing community assets, issues and needs, natural systems, built systems, community systems. And I thank you for highlighting section 4, community goals. Can, as a point of discussion, do folks feel like, for our peoples who are reading this, natural systems, built systems, community systems, I'm good with it, I just don't know if people would immediately understand it. Do we have to say that language?
No, That's.
I'm just opening it for discussion.
It's from the regional policy
Yeah,
plan.
it's an
I think the-
organizing principle, but
Yeah.
you're not wedded, you don't have to.
It's profession-specific language.
Personally, I don't question the overall structure. I would much rather focus on what's within the section.
The reason why I'm saying it is, but that, it is accessed through that language. And that, if that's, I don't have any problem with it, I just want to make sure that that's okay, that we want to call it natural systems, built systems, community systems.
And this was just an initial way of organizing it. Margot's correct, that it's based on the regional policy plan.
Sure.
Not wedded to this structure.
No, I think
You
it's
could
fine.
Further break it down
No.
by having within natural systems, in the table of contents, you could identify all the different topics, water. ocean.
Maybe, but okay.
I didn't do that for this. initial
No,
draft.
no, I get it. No, and I think it actually is very accessible because you can see, at least as it is now, the table of contents in one page. And the reason why I'm getting to your point, David, in community goals is, and we can focus on the specifics of that. Do you want to call it community goals? Do you want to call it community action plan? We've had different words tossed around about this. Goals, goals kind of relates back to our vision statement. I'm good with it. I'm just,
There's sort of there's a hierarchy here.
Right.
So you have the overall vision, which is the,
Yeah.
the
vision statement, yeah.
the big umbrella that
Mm-hmm.
over the whole the whole document.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have goals, which are also fairly broad, but they're topic specific.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and under those goals, you have specific policies, and then the action plan, which we haven't gotten to yet,
I was going to say, yes.
is really where you get into the kind of nitty gritty that David is looking for.
Well, I guess help me, a total layperson. Help me as a total layperson, then we can dig into the specifics. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Changes to bylaws, ordinances, implementation schedule, project, the capital facilities project schedule, housing advancement schedule, performance measures. A lot of this is the nitty gritty of what you're, what is the logic of having it separated by two sections from the community goals?
That's what I was going to suggest. Can we just blend it together? 'Cause
Or maybe there's a reason. I appreciate the professional expertise that goes into this. So, but just as a layperson, totally accessing this.
Going forward, and some towns have done this, where they actually put their goals, either they call them policies or objectives, and actions all together, so that the public or boards or whatever can easily access all of those in one place. So when this gets to a final version that's laid out and polished, if you would prefer to see all of those in one place for easy reading, it can easily be done, and you're still fulfilling the requirements of the plan. So it's very flexible.
So 4 and 7 could be merged in theory.
But yes, but I would not like eliminate any of them.
No, I understand. Yeah. I understand the housing production plan. And Christine, were you going to say something?
Goals and objectives, like the goals that the committee has seen them at least a couple of times.
Yep.
I don't think there've been a lot of changes to those, the policies or objectives, however you want to call them. Those are very preliminary too, so some further refinement of those might be
Okay.
recommended.
Okay. Do you want to, so would it be a good system space to, in this 50 minutes left, should we, because we've been through them before, these are not new to us, should we delve into the goals and be leaving section 7, the action plan, for our community engagement, where we're going out with our committees? I mean, maybe I don't want to just say next month, but is that a logical path?
I think sort of one thing leads to the next.
Okay.
So that, you want your actions need to be consistent with your policies or objectives. Your policies and objectives need to be consistent with your goals. But you're getting into a greater level of specificity as you go down through that
Okay.
structure.
You know,
And I think, there's nothing magic about putting all the actions in a separate section. We could do just what Sharon was describing, which is to say, okay, this section is about water resources, and our goal is this, our objectives are these, and here are the actions that we think will.
as a lay, I reserve the right to change my mind, of course, and I see like 7, so we're going to have to delve into 4 tonight, because like 7 is to be decided, but I think as a lay person reading it, it's probably more powerful to kind of merge this all together, though I appreciate the pedagogy that goes into separating it out, but if we're talking about the goal of the community using it, it probably makes sense to have like a section that you can take out and say, these were the values, these are the goals, and this is how you're going to do it.
That's kind of what Truro did exactly for their.
We're right with Truro.
They
Okay.
had like a summary that wasn't necessarily a full summary. They had, the goals, the policies, the actions, and so you could hand that out. And that's what people in the public are most interested in, is how is it going to affect them? And then in terms of things like the existing conditions, all of that, the dialogue there, that's important to have in the plan, but it can be further back. So you can have right up front, you have your vision statement and your action plan up front. Completely fine.
Okay. All right. Trucking right along then. Could we start with section 4 then? Can we start with maybe the most controversial? We've given, and it's incredibly important, we've given Can we start with community systems then? Because we've given built systems and, I gotta get the lingo, natural systems. So let's work from the bottom up. just,
Way down.
just to torture everybody here. Community systems, page 46 of 60 in the PDF.
Wow.
Small point of feedback. I might take a piece of the vision statement under community systems instead of that language there. Following goals to support vibrant and diverse communities. I might repeat the sentence from the vision statement there. That's unifying that. I know that's like more of a generic statement that's there. All right, we can get warmed up by cultural heritage here.
I don't see the numbers on the pages.
4-5.
In the bottom left of the PDF,
So 4-6 is
Yeah.
46?
47 of 60.
The section number right now. sorry.
Section 4, but look at
Okay.
page 45.
All right, so it's to protect and preserve Harwich's significant cultural, historic, and archaeologic values and resources, sure. If we all read these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points,
We're looking like under the energy policies?
nope, you're down community systems, cultural heritage.
Next one. Okay.
Bernadette, protect and preserve archaeological resources and assets from alteration or relocation. Is that land?
Yeah, I guess. That's not, an area that I think about a lot, but yeah.
Which one?
The second. to
Protect and
principle,
preserve archaeological resources and assets. Can we just take that out? That doesn't sound like anything. I mean, that's like,
They all beget an action, so maybe that's the other way to think about it. What
no,
action-
I mean, the archaeological, like a lay Harwich person, we're not digging up like vases out of the dirt. That just like loses, there may be a different definition of that term, but that undermines everything else you're trying to say in that statement, in this line.
In a comprehensive plan, all of this stuff is relevant, but some of it is a heck of a lot more important.
Yeah, just take, I mean, we don't want to, we got, you know.
Don't think we're about to spend $500,000 a year on this.
Yeah, just, yeah, take that out. Protect and preserve forms, layout, scale, massing, and key characters defining historic reasons. That gets it. Traffic calming measures, sure. Additional programming at the 204. Protect and preserve, yeah, we take the archaeological resources. Protect and preserve traditional agricultural and maritime development and uses.
How are we gonna track that?
I have no
Yeah, I
idea.
know.
That's also,
And if we're going to have more housing, that's going to be hard to do.
yeah,
Well, the maritime
Please.
uses also tie very closely with the open space and recreation
Sure.
plans for the 3 active harbors and
Okay.
how much commercial
okay.
and recreational
Sure.
is generated, and then also,
Agriculture's cool. I know cranberries are somewhat controversial.
and then it has a very active agricultural program.
Okay.
so
Okay, that's cool. All right,
If we're looking to promote that, I mean, those might be some metrics that we can follow.
sure.
So
Sorry.
just to also give some context here, these policies are they are broad still, and they're covering a range of issues that I think deleting, it may not be that you have very strong actions in some of these areas at this point in time. They may not be the highest priorities, but to, like, delete archaeological resources, you know, from probably get some pushback.
I guess it feels like to somebody who's using this and coming, it doesn't feel like it's ours. I understand intellectually, academically what you're talking about, but if we want people to try to use it, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. I'm just saying the word. Like we have to lose time to this, but it doesn't feel Harwich applicable, though I understand.
Are there, the other flip side of that, are there policies that we're going
Is there
to
a
focus
better
on?
word than archaeologic?
I'm gonna push back on this.
Okay,
because,
okay.
I mean, there are archaeological resources all over Cape Cod. I mean,
Okay.
this is not,
Not Harwich.
it's not, I mean, it's, you don't have to be in Mashpee to have something that will be of interest to the Wampanoag.
Okay.
You know,
Is it possible to have policies that we don't have specific actions against?
yes.
Yes.
That
Okay.
might be an example of
Yes.
one that's
Okay.
important.
Okay.
And, you know, David had talked about prioritizing too, when we get into the actions. And so maybe this isn't a higher.
Yeah.
I think you will get pushback from the Cape Cod Commission if you take it out.
Okay.
Leave the
I'm
policy.
But
just saying.
historic instead of archaeological?
They're different
Archaeological is.
Okay. All right. Okay, I stand corrected. I get it. I think we.
There are 2 different things.
Sure.
They're 2 different
Yeah.
things.
They are 2 different things, but if I could, just for sort of discussion's sake or thinking forward, something like this policy could be addressed in one bylaw that covers a lot of different issues, such as a land clearing bylaw, which you have talked about. And so archaeological resources are most often disturbed during construction activity. So if they're
these
left
are-
alone, or there's a pre-investigation required, or, you know, something
Okay.
required. So one bylaw could probably address 4 or 5 different policies you have in this plan right now.
Right.
So,
By the way, though, if you do that, all that costs money and raises the price of houses and causes another issue.
Yes. Stated.
We keep in a policy like this, but then we follow it up and saying, we don't need action points for every single policy. And I'm still gonna argue that we need to prioritize. We need to do the most important. And then do we put them in each section like we're doing, or do we have a concise group of action points at the end?
You could do it either way or
Right, I know.
both. You know, I mean, it doesn't really matter where it is. It's it needs to be somewhere in the plan.
I was just thinking Sharon's example of, you might have an ordinance, a bylaw that combines archaeology with a few other things. Then maybe it's a sort of action thing that isn't tying right into one place.
Yeah.
It's pulling in things from about 3 or 4 places.
Yeah, okay.
That's
And
my
that's
only
how your
reason,
action
Sharon.
plan may say, you know, when we get there, it'll
It might
list,
identify.
it'll list policy B1, C4, and
exactly.
X, Y, Z.
No, I
Part of what our housing, Karen has done anyway. I think.
Sorry?
I think Karen has done some of that. And
Yeah.
She's got something that is a model for our action plan. I don't agree with all her examples, but in the housing production plan section, she's gone to that, what we should be doing for everything else. And she does use that footnote business.
So, you know, in this cultural heritage policies, I look at the first one, protect and preserve forms, layout, scale, massing, and key character defining features of historic resources, including traditional development patterns of the seven villages. Well, if we're supposed to preserve all that, what happens to the suggestion that in order to develop housing that is
well, if you go to
increase density in the village centers? You've just thrown that policy out.
You want, yeah.
Well, you have an action
Yeah.
that talks about doing the housing density. You say villages are encouraged, but while you're doing that, pay attention to the footnote this one.
You adopt design guidelines, for example,
You
that
can
address
have, you
this
can
issue.
have this stuff,
Yeah.
and it's not the end-all and be-all, but you do reference it in sort of a more targeted action.
I mean, there are ways to do infill development that are, that respect, it's new building, but it respects the kinds of forms and building
Yeah.
materials and all of that.
There was
kind
some
of
on
stuff.
Main Street that was recently done at the convenience store. It looks pretty good.
So maybe, okay, and I stand corrected about archaeologic. I guess I was just sort of taking that as a given, like, you know, like we don't have to put like, don't beat your dog in the local comprehensive plan, but, you know, like, but, okay. So moving on, to this point, because we're having a very productive conversation about housing, and Ed pointed out about the culture, you know, preserve forms, layouts. So maybe there's a point of elaboration here on housing, but the language you guys just started to use about community character, backfill, you know, the phrasing. Like maybe that could be added to the goal, you know, because you've got zoning in here, which pursues zoning and other regulatory changes. You're building local capacity to better promote affordable and attainable housing through additional resources and other local actions. Maybe that's a place to, you know, say something about like embracing by, you know, that builds upon the first statement in forms, layout, scale, and heritage policies, cultural policies, but just to be a little bit more specific about the housing policy that, you know, building within the villages. You just started to say it.
Well, I think you're talking about
Infill?
infill development, how that should be handled? Or-
Yeah, well, Ed was just pointing out the tension here of we're saying, you know, preserve the villages, historical resource, you know, historical layout, scale, massing, and yet we need attainable housing, right? So addressing, is there a way to, you just started to say, well, there's a way to,
You can
this could be a bullet point.
You can build within an existing village, new buildings, or modifications to existing buildings that respect the basic architecture and scale that's already there.
So I'm saying that should be a point.
Like the
Under housing. Exactly what she said.
This first policy,
like the market.
cultural, is,
Yeah.
is really being specific to historic building forms. So, and then there's another policy in community design that talks about sort of generally responding to context, and then
Maybe we should put it in housing. It's probably something like that in housing too.
it could be a policy under housing. I mean, that,
So can it be both? Can it be a goal to like build local capacity to better promote affordable and attainable housing through additional resources and other local actions while also respecting,
Local context.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, including scale, layout. We all know we're going to have to step away from massing, but, you know, because that's density, but.
But you also want it for commercial as well as.
Can we use the housing example? Since I think that's I always say that's one of our most important issues as to what type of community we're going to be in the next 10, 20 years.
Mhm.
There's a very good but general policy statement. Pursue zoning and other regulatory changes to provide incentives and remove barriers to development of affordable and attainable housing. So there's a general policy. Now, what are the action points?
There are none.
If you, yes, there are.
Oh.
If you go down to the housing production plan,
Okay,
which is section 7,
okay.
and let me just get to.
See, that's why they should be together, right? Because then you have to scroll.
No. Because there's too many places
Okay.
where things overlap.
Okay.
You've got a table 1,
Yes.
section 7 dash,
6-8.
page 50 of 64. You've got a summary of housing strategies. Now, Karen has gone very specific on regulatory structure strategies. I don't agree with all
Okay.
8 of hers, and she's got who it's assigned to, what year it should be accomplished. So here, if you're talking about an action plan, you got the blueprint for one right in this table. And it's been much more specific than anything else we've gotten to anywhere in the plan so far. Page 50 of 60.
Yeah, it's, okay, I see it.
And they're
This
called
is section
strategies, but
5.
they look like actions.
Is this section 5 or?
6-8.
6-8 or page 57 in the PDF, or at least in my version of
It's like a tight ratio chart.
You know, again, I reserve the right to be corrected. These actions to what we're going through.
Well, what we're saying is each section needs to have a concrete set of actions. This is a good example.
Yes.
I don't think we can do these sort of actions for everything that we've identified.
No, but some. Just in using the document, if things aren't separated by 30 pages, like the goals, the policies, and the actions are not separated, I think that helps it. Yeah.
If you like, at the next meeting
Yeah.
or in between, I can send you an example of a plan that we did that did exactly that. And so I think Brewster did it this way, where they have everything, if you have a goal, they have goals and they called them
Yeah.
something else. And then they have the actions and it's all like on one page. It's,
Sure.
For each
Yeah.
section.
I think if we want it to be used, that the design matters. All right, just being respectful of the time, so it's 6:30. We have 2 more sections to get through. Before we step off community systems here, we've lived to die another day about archaeologic. we've thought that we maybe want to add a little more detail, using Margot's language, about the housing policies. Kind of anything else anyone wants to say about economy in terms of policies?
I have a couple of points, but I could. One is I get a little confused about talking about things. There's no mention of the word taxes in here, and yet we talk about things that are going to cost a lot of money, like getting sewers and stuff like that. And yet, if I were a citizen out there, I'd say, aren't they going to talk about whether taxes are going to go up or should they go up? Who thinks taxes should go up? I think.
We live in a constrained box where
Yeah,
we have to
but anyway,
prioritize.
but we never mention the word
It's a great question.
taxes, or just sort of where the money comes from.
How are we going to pay for all of this?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to worry about, sort of finding all these things in the ground, that's going to be taxes. So that's one thing that I find missing. The other thing I found missing, I think it's great, by the way, is we don't use the word growth in a clear way to me. Like, we have a problem right now getting housing for people who are here right now. But do we want to grow? Do we want
No.
to have 30% more people living here in 10 or 20 years?
We don't say,
But
we
we-
say
we
that,
don't
we do
mention-
not say that, we say that in our vision statement. Limited capacity to absorb additional population growth
Yeah, but
without degrading the environment. I don't know that that's well, I appreciate your point, but I'm not sure that that's I don't think we have to take that on right now.
But it's sort of like, if you were out there listening to what's going on, that would be a question.
That is
Um,
like, yeah, how are you gonna, if we're increasing density and we're not growing, so we're just replacing people.
Right, and if you look all around the country, wherever things keep growing, you lose a lot of the prettiness of it and stuff. So we want everything to be pretty and look like 20 or 100 years ago, but we also want to have
But
more.
we say that, though. It's
We do.
Up
We do.
at the page 3. up in
Yes,
the
we do.
Which is growth policy.
Right.
I think we kind of lay it out to say that growth has to be intelligently managed. It's Cape Cod as a region is constrained.
Yes,
We're not open season for growing at 30%.
right,
Well-
right.
Okay.
Limited capacity, I think we're good with that. I don't think we have to make population estimates.
Then there's one other third trivial thing. Somebody's
Because we say the Harwich growth policy is to meet the needs of future generations for housing and economic sustainability.
So I think the other thing that's hard to deal with, or hard to say, is about, the summer or part-time folks. And in fact, there's a line here where we say they inflict a lot of, pressure on the town, but they also pay a lot in taxes. They don't use schools. So to have the thing in the first 3 pages say the summer people are a pain in the ass, I don't think that's a good idea.
But at the same time, they're leaving a lot of homes standing empty, so you want to talk about growth, you can talk about the physical growth and the structural growth, but there's also the economic and the human impact.
And I appreciate that, it's just outside of what we're reviewing right now. So we're in these policy points about, we'll come back to that vision statement, but.
Are
For-
we still in the economy
Yeah,
section?
so before we move on to the next two, let's bang out the economy.
I do have the second bullet point. Use resources and infrastructure efficiently. That statement, it's subjective. What is efficient?
Sure.
And, I think it needs to be more definite on what's efficient, like, what's defined.
Could even take efficiently out, use resources and infrastructure to support. Are there any ways to measure that? You raised a really great point about agricultural use and maritime use. There's a way to measure that.
I think for infrastructure use, are we, meeting our targeted watershed nitrogen reduction plans or our goals? With the comprehensive wastewater plan, or using other alternative septic systems as one way of minimizing impacts to infrastructure or using it more efficiently. Another is doing smart growth and doing what Margot was talking about, the infill, where you're consolidating some of the infrastructure resources of the town.
So maybe that's like amazing specificity that
Yes.
maybe could go in those policies that are actually measurable. So like nitrogen reduction, and you've so eloquently spoken about, I'm going to mangle the terms, like revitalization of like West Harwich is a great example. So
Consolidating.
yeah, consolidation of existing resources in villages that are respectful of all this. And I get that idea when you talk about West Harwich. So they have these specific, buildings that are important, and it's important historically, and yet they're kind of not being used. So what can we do to make that vital?
That is the key, is to
Right,
really
so that
have the wording
matters.
so it's measurable.
Yeah, so could we put that in the economy, right, somehow? Thank you.
I do also think, to Jim's point,
Mm.
seasonal residents do supply,
Mm-hmm.
they create an awful lot of jobs in terms of if they're doing short-term rental, the hotels, the inns, a lot of the restaurants, landscapers,
Landscapers.
housekeeping. They are in a way contributing to the town's economy. And so we do need to, I do think that does need to be acknowledged, and they are subsidizing a large portion of the town's tax base, which is beneficial to the rest of us who live here year-round. So I do think there, we can couch it in a way that it's balanced nicely, but I think the overall goal is for future development, for future support of the economy. We want to make sure we're doing it in a sustainable way, but also that there's a balance. And there's a lot of competing uses, land uses, but we want to just make sure that we're it's done. I think, to your point, Joyce, intelligently and that it's done sensitively.
Yeah, we can live to fight another day, but we don't want to piss off the summer residents. I don't mean it that way. I don't think we are, but we'll make sure when we go through that language is inclusive.
More overt about it.
Yeah.
A lot of that has changed when we look at the demographics.
Yeah.
Particularly with COVID, people have chosen to now reside here year-round, and they're members of our year-round
Yes,
community.
yes. I was just trying to focus on these specific things for tonight, but thematically we'll come back. Right. No. I appreciate it. I was just trying to get us through something that Sharon can sink her teeth in terms of moving this document forward. All right. And then we're going to move forward to the next section. Go ahead.
The section is on economy, not on town economics. I mean, those are sort of different.
Well, it's the community systems of the economy, right? So, yeah.
For the economy, I do agree with Ed. You can kind of separate that out, and I think for residents and our demographic growth and tax base, we can touch on that in kind of the executive summary. So.
Okay. Can we then go to built systems? Just because I feel like we've given a lot of good brain space to natural systems, and if with everybody's permission, if we focus in the last 20 minutes on the built systems, because I think we're in a good place with water, ocean, wetland. Not that it couldn't always be, but I want to focus maybe a little bit in terms of goals and potential actions on built systems in our remaining 23 minutes.
All right, I'll jump right in. So
Hit
the
me.
last bullet under the community design goal is review of 2000.
Built systems, so it's go up a section, to,
Page 44.
they're all different, I think, depends on how you open the PDF. So for Jim,
44.
I have 44 too, but we're under built systems. Yep.
I'm right on
I'm
your
right there.
agenda.
Okay, nice. Go ahead.
The last bullet underneath that first goal is something that we should have done. I don't think reviewing the LCP strategies, or I guess it's for each.
We
of the
did.
villages.
Review strategy for each of the villages regarding status implementation. We did that last time. We did it last meeting.
But
Yeah, I
is
take it
there
out.
a response to that or
Well,
conclusion?
what's the action? Are we doing something with that? Are we?
We spent a fair bit of time last time. It's in our minutes in the last.
This looks a little dull. It looks like it's
But
work
should-
that we should have done.
Shouldn't have the review been part of our existing community assets?
I agree. Maybe it doesn't need to be a goal because we have already done it. So I think where I'm agreeing with Brian.
So are you suggesting taking it out?
Yes. It's an action we should have done in our work.
And I think we did last meeting.
Yeah.
And there were even some, remember you had the tables. Remember we spent you actually were not with us, but at the meeting, we did spend a robust amount of time going through, there was some tables. And we kind of remember historically went through all the villages and where we were at with the planning and.
There's an
Yeah.
activity that belongs in governance, but I don't think it's here. I mean, I guess I'm not sure what the point would be.
Yeah, it can come out. I think we've done it. Good point. So to that point,
If there are some recommendations that came out of that discussion that I can pull from the minutes, I can incorporate them into the document, so it's,
it is,
easier for that.
I understand. It is in the minutes. It's recorded. I don't remember off the top of my head. So actually it's related to, we kind of temporally related. So these are the things like, West Harwich, Christine so wisely put that, and we talked about the challenges facing North Harwich. We had a little debate about what exactly is North Harwich. So develop and design guidelines for new development and redevelopment that are reflective of village character. So do we want to prioritize here one village over the other, i.e. East Harwich was very timely. North Harwich
And East Harwich was done to some degree
Correct.
several years ago.
North Harwich, West Harwich are becoming timely. This is a document that's supposed to be around 10 years. So maybe we want to just leave all of them here at the 7 villages and say,
Or not refer to them and
Oh,
then.
we said last time that these 4 were the most important.
okay,
Right.
That's-
okay,
that's what's
okay,
on the list.
okay, you like it. Okay, good, leave it. Do you want to keep in revisit the East Harwich design?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the
That-
If we
okay.
need to, after
Okay.
last
Okay.
conversation.
Want to model the other ones after.
Yep,
East
perfect. Well, yeah, depends on who you ask, but yes. Yes, yes. Pursue grant programs, designate, okay, and so we're going to take out the last point. Anything else in community design? All right, coastal resiliency.
Under the initial goal goes to prevent or minimize human suffering and loss of life.
Right, don't kick your dog and don't dig up artifacts. Yes.
But, you know, I can see, protect property and prevent environmental damage, but, we watch recent storms and coastal buildings are swept away and there is not, there's, I guess, some human suffering, but there's not a whole lot of loss of life.
How
given that they-
many people died in Asheville? Yeah, right.
Over 100 people so far.
Closer
Yeah.
to 200 last time.
I agree. It's your archaeologic point, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
But is Asheville really,
That's
really
that's
not a
flooding, that's
coastal?
not coastal resiliency.
It's not a coastal resilience issue the same way, we have.
To be honest, this is a goal that comes straight out of the regional policy plan.
Oh, it's okay.
You want to tweak it?
Walk away.
No, I mean, it's all right. I mean, we always want to protect the
love it.
humans, right? I don't know.
I mean, I think the reason it's written this way is they don't connect the issue of coastal resiliency with actual threats to human life.
Yeah.
It's like property.
Or human suffering, like some of our more low-lying parts in West Harwich, approaching Harwich Port, people are living there and it floods fairly regularly. So, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we live in a place that's vulnerable. It doesn't happen that often, but when it happens, look out. And so, I mean, people need to realize that there is a threat to life and property from coastal storms.
I
We
guess-
And
didn't really have tornadoes either.
and then it ripped my roof off.
Down in Florida that time,
Yeah.
a whole generation had gone without it ever happening.
Yeah.
And they got complacent and
I think you're overruled, Ed. We're leaving in the humans. Just like archaeology stays.
Californian and, when we're talking about a
Yeah,
disaster, we're
yeah.
talking about an earthquake.
Yeah. All right,
No
okay.
warning, no.
So on
Whereas a
the
hurricane, you watch coming at you for days.
on the policies, trugging ahead. On the policies, are we good?
You didn't used to, but now you do.
Or I mean, I love these policies. Thank you for saving us from ourselves about like the state's MVP 2.0 and that's like really professional stuff that yes, flood area design guidelines. Love it. We're good. I love, and this is measurable, man. Update
What
that.
does MVP stand for?
Municipal vulnerability preparedness.
Ninja lady right there.
Walking encyclopedia.
Yeah, why don't
Take
we-
that, Ed,
Any other questions?
for our professional planner.
You can go home. You're fantastic.
Okay, and I mean, how measurable is this? Update the hazard mitigation plan every 5 years, spectacular. Okay, trucking along here. This one, community facilities, services, and infrastructure, and I want to make sure we get to transportation and energy and waste management. Oh my God, we got to keep charging ahead here. This was my question here. Did anyone want to say, I love maintain and adequately equip town facilities in a cost-effective manner. Is there, I think we should kind of acknowledge maybe how it's not without pain, but innovative and spectacular, the 204 is. And if you want to put this in there somehow about like, because I mean, that's adequately equipped town facilities in a cost-effective manner. Like this is innovative, functional, resilient, what are the, and it kind of builds on like using our historic structures. It's the idea of the backfill. I don't know if anyone wants to say that, if we want to say that specifically there.
Have we discussed it in the text, in that section? That's what I thought. Yeah,
mentioned,
yeah.
In the cultural section.
I don't know if you want to say, use that as a model.
Use that as part of the economy section in terms of promoting the creative economy
Love it.
for arts and
Love it.
organizations.
Love it. I just, on a real practical level, you got this big building that now has come back online and being physically used. It comes up for me, I agree totally on the economy, but if there's just a way to acknowledge it and sort of integrate it into the fabric here, facility, service, and infrastructure, because that's a huge thing. Took this relatively new school and no one was planning on what happened, and
Repurpose.
yes, making the best of the unexpected. And there's and I guess what I'm saying is there's even more that could be done there. You know, there's more potential. Maybe we should probably say that.
Well, in one of the policies also,
As long as there's no air conditioning, they're not gonna go.
something about, because it's a cultural center, and, you know, and we have a variety of historic structures, you know, seeking the state and federal support for those programs, which I know we've done a little bit on historic structures, but I don't think we've ever done a facilities grant application
Yeah,
for.
Karen did one last year, she did one again this year, but
Okay.
last year didn't have enough data
Okay,
to
but,
put in
you
there.
know,
Yeah, MCC has them every year.
Support the process of
Yep.
applying for.
It's her job, she
Yeah,
does it.
yeah.
So one of my comments on this one is to increase or better utilize available parking in Harwichport and Harwich Center. I think one of the last things we want to do is suggest that we start increasing the parking by tearing
We
down
can't.
trees and
Yeah,
stuff
we
like
don't
that,
have-
like,
There's nowhere to,
pardon?
there is no more parking.
Well,
Maybe it's-
they've been trying, so, I mean, if we
Parking
can
garages.
somehow
Yeah, I know.
word it so that utilize,
Seek alternative approaches
thank
to, seek
Yeah.
alternative approaches to encourage commerce, you know, parking, accessibility to Harwich. I mean, you know.
other things, be it trolleys or, you know,
Right.
things like that.
That's in transportation, next section.
So I don't think we need to be tearing trees down for parking lots.
It's, well, look at, we even had design improvement, strategies to address peak seasonal traffic flow such as shuttle buses. So maybe it's not, to increase or better utilize available parking, but it's like mitigate or acknowledge or
What if you just took out the word increase and just said to
Yeah.
better utilize available?
better utilize available parking? There you go, better utilize, okay.
Configure.
On that line in transportation,
Nice, on to transportation.
one of the things is evaluate the implementation of a blue bike system to provide for the transportation needs of our summer visitors.
Blue bike is like, you ride it, you leave it?
Yeah,
Yeah, what did that used to
and
be
they're
called?
gonna ride it on the sidewalks in Harwichport that already have,
Because you're not gonna know where.
yeah, we don't have bike lanes. You know, it's a thing that works well up in the urban areas of the city, but I really question how much of a desire they'd be and how much of a use it would be for that.
Those require pretty extensive maintenance too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who's
But
gonna,
it's a-
who's gonna
it's a-
move them back to
I think
the,
if we had probably a better bike setup, it would be fantastic, but I just don't.
These are, again, really professional, measurable
Yeah.
policies, thank you.
They are happening all over the country, though, in small towns and big towns, so,
Are they?
yep, and when I came back from grad work in Savannah, and I rode my bike all around in Savannah, and you didn't dare ride on a sidewalk in Savannah. You had to ride like the vehicle that you are, with the traffic, signaling and all that. And I came home, and after one summer, I gave up on riding my bicycle down into Harwichport. And I looked into the whole question of, I don't think people are supposed to be riding on the sidewalk, but apparently within a village, and I think it's true in Harwichport, within our village, yeah, they can. So people are, you can't even, you can barely walk one person going this way and one person going that way on the sidewalks.
Bicycles.
But people are riding bicycles as well. And I just don't see where we have the given infrastructure to bring in.
Well,
I'll say it's not enforced.
throws a monkey wrench into
You're
it,
riding
too.
a bicycle, it's considered a vehicle. And it
I just
needs-
said that, Ed.
Yeah.
I know, and that's the key. It's
Okay.
not enforced.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, okay, yeah.
the Harwich Police, the Brewster Police, every summer
Yeah.
season that starts, they all start posting on Facebook that, you're like a vehicle. You're supposed to stop at your blinking stop sign on the rail trail,
Yeah,
because the right of way is here, and people stop trying to be nice,
Let's do energy. I think we're winning when we say incentives for private development to install solar on gray fields and avoid undisturbed or wooded lands. That's consistent with everything we've heard.
So doable, too.
Encourage alternatives to single occupancy vehicles and encourage connectivity. Love that. Adopt tree planting policies. Should we say, and maybe this is not the right spot, for built, we love planting trees. We've heard in a variety of ways, and I'm agnostic about it, but maybe it would be for a policy like undertake feasibility of tree cutting. You've talked about different situations in different communities where there's like some tree cutting restrictions and things like that. People have always talked about it. I don't want to weigh in on whether it's right or wrong, but maybe we could put in something to like undertake that as a, we talk about lots of things that we should explore. Maybe that should be,
You mean the clear cutting, Joyce? or just-
yeah, like,
Include tree planting or other tree preservation efforts.
right. Adopt tree planting policies to sequester carbon and further study what,
It's called like tree protection bylaws, tree protection.
I know they're controversial, I get it, all the nuance of it,
is
but,
in one of the other sections.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
okay.
But you can have policies in various sections. that
Trees are
then
important to
might
people.
have One action.
And it's a big green thing, it's a big carbon thing. If we're talking about solar panels, we should talk about trees multiple
Yep.
places.
not only sequestering carbon, but it's also the importance of street trees. and
Yeah,
that
we should put more.
shade-
So,
Shade.
I think that I would say, character, yeah.
We lost all the trees in front of my house and the neighbor across, and you can feel the heat in the summer.
Yeah, so could we add something in there about like, I don't want to be blown out of the water about you shouldn't, but consider tree protection program, whatever that is.
Explore tree
Yes.
protection policies.
Yes.
and provide
Yes.
shade
Yes.
services.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. That's appropriate here.
Okay,
The other side of that is that, it's like $500 to $1,000 to get a tree removed these days. And so the more trees you have, I happen to have about 500 trees. And it's sort of like, it's an expensive thing. And because they're all ready to fall on something, or not all,
in our,
a good 10%.
in our remaining 6 minutes, should we give you a little something to say about waste management?
Yes, I noticed when we put this together, we did not have any waste management policies, so
Huh.
have some, or?
Tell us what waste management means. Do we mean, we don't, sewer, or do you mean the dump? Where do we?
This is solid waste.
Solid waste.
Okay.
Solid
Right.
waste, recycling, composting, those kinds of activities, not wastewater.
We just started.
Yeah, we're actually,
The secrets of there was once a wonderful post in the old timers group. I wish I had saved it. Of like the secrets of the dump will be revealed to you over many, like which actually maybe there's a increased communication about how the dump works. Actually, is actually a thing.
I have to say that I lived in Yarmouth for a couple of years, and my family has a place in the Adirondacks, so I visited a bunch of different transfer stations. And I think the Harwich transfer station is better run than any other facility I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
It's clean, it's neat, it doesn't stink.
Organized.
It's very well organized. They're doing an excellent.
They are.
And they welcomed in the Garden Club's project.
I was gonna say, they're very proactive.
Amazing hours. The world loves it. It's 8 to 4, like 361 days of the year. They're only closed like Christmas, New Year's Day, and 4th of July. The rest of the days, it's 8 to 4.
Yep,
Always know when it's open.
yep.
And contrary to popular belief, it actually is much more economical running those days than if it was closed 2 days a week.
Really?
Yeah. You go through the numbers and you go through, and the big issue is because we take in construction and demolition.
Yeah.
If you start closing a couple days a week, you lose a good portion of it.
Ooh, so maybe we should say something in that like
Because-
there's an advantage of being efficient and economically
Christmas.
responsive. No, they're closed Christmas.
Do you have some thoughts on what those plans have included here?
I think one potential policy that we could put in here is to recommend that they, continue to support the treasure chest, because that is an
I
opportunity.
would agree we should say that.
Oh, yeah.
To reuse,
Reuse,
about that.
recycle.
yeah,
And it's controversial.
yeah.
I mean, it isn't controversial, but there's, yes, I think it's a beloved thing that every once in a while becomes under scrutiny. Yeah.
It suggests that they possibly expand the food waste program to include restaurants.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
love it. Look at
They
us.
would, yeah, if they would be willing to do that, that would be great.
I don't know how you do it.
Should we say something about, I defer to you guys who know the budget a little bit more. Should we say something about, we're talking about being efficient and we're talking about finances, something, explore opportunities for revenue return to the town from the dump, right? I mean, I think that's the argument behind the composting, right? Is there a for-profit company that's paying for the,
Link says it's a wash.
Yeah, it's just.
That they're not making money on it, but they're not losing money on it either. So it's, it's a good thing to do, and it's kind of a break even,
that's the composting.
yeah.
Well, it's taking some tonnage out of our solid waste that
Right.
has to get moved, so
Right.
it's still of a benefit to us. And maybe if more people get on the composting
Yeah.
bandwagon, we'll see a little benefit monetarily, but at least it's a break even.
Yeah.
Our cost to transport the solid stuff to Dartmouth or wherever is not going higher
Yeah.
if some of us are bringing our little buckets up
Green
there.
thing.
I get so excited about it, I can't tell you.
It's a village.
Are there any other burning questions about waste management that we should weigh in on?
I don't have any at this time. I can look at what some other towns are doing. This is an area where Cape Cod Commission staff might have some good ideas too when we bring them, so.
My husband says the best part about living in Harwich is the dump. I mean,
Social events of the week.
no, I mean, he just, all the things Margot said.
I've got a few bullet points that I'll
Okay.
add here.
Okay.
At least it's something and,
Could we, in our last, we're at time, but just a general, being respectful of where we're going and how quickly we have to get this turning around. We're having the housing stuff happening at the end of the month, and I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. For you, in terms of getting this done, our priority in the next month, both of you,
well.
where we should be putting our focus.
Action plan.
Okay.
And another item that we'll need to work on and work with Christine and others on is the capital facilities plan. And that it's really more of a spreadsheet exercise. I think I've talked about that before. But it's basically kind of, dovetailing your capital needs with what the plan says your goals are and so forth. So there's some work to be done there, but I think starting to focus on draft actions, and if there's outreach ongoing to other committees and boards and so forth.
That's what we should be asking about.
And
Yes.
give them any recommended actions as well.
So action, 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 action. Thank you, guys, very much. Appreciate it. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Second? Any discussion? All in favor?